Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello my friends and Sorelli. I am Ismiyanti and this is my presentation. In this time I will present about the workplace bullying and harassment. So, what must workers do? Number 1. Speak up early on. One of the best things that you can do for yourself is the minute somebody mistreat you, that you speak up in the moment right then and squash it. Because everybody likes the path of least resistance. And actions you can do is 1. Call attention to their values. 2. Explain why it's a problem. And number 3. Say their name aloud. And don't forget your body language. The bad news is that if you brush off bullying and let it continue its early stage, it will only get worse. And by the time they realize they are being bullied, it might be too late. Once the power imbalance has been committed, it can be virtually impossible for the target to fix. In other words, if you muster the courage to speak up after months of being bullied, the abuse is not just unlikely to stop, it may even intensify. So, if you are far down the path, you might be better off taking a different approach. And number 2 is document the abuse in your performance. If it took a while to realize the full severity of what's happening to you, and you feel like you missed your chance to react quickly, start documenting because documenting is so important in this case. Keep a journal of the who, what, when, where, and why of these things happen. If you are in a staff meeting and bullying occurs, then go back to your desk and write down who else was in the staff meeting, what was said, why was it said, and try to just put in as much detail as you can around kind of the facts of the situation. If you decide to report the bully later, you will want to be able to give concrete example of the behaviors you're describing. In addition, start reeling away any emails or other evidence to back up your side of the story. For example, if your boss is criticizing your performance, collect documentation that demonstrates quantifiable result of project you're working on as well as any praise-filled emails you have gotten from other stakeholders. And number 3 is take care of yourself outside of work. If you can, join some things happening outside of work that will make you feel good about yourself. Join a softball team or do yoga or of those things that make you happy. Catherine made this done because it's so important that you just work in office. Bullying can take a hard toll on you in the office and outside of it, but it can help you try to balance the damaging influence with positive ones. Consider seeking personal help from a therapist or a counselor. Trying to find someone who understands trauma, you can simply call and ask, do you have skilled practitioners in trauma-informed counseling? Or do you practice trauma-informed counseling? If the answer is no, or what is it, then call someone else. And next, do your research. Does your company have a policy about bullying, mistreatment, verbal abuse, or anything similar that you might be able to reference? Since bullying is not illegal, many companies don't have a formal policy against it. But it's worth your time to check your employee handbook or any other document that lays out the organization's value and expectation. It can only strengthen you can if you are able to point to that but to that language is if you decide to make a complaint. At the same time, consider seeking legal advice to confirm whether or not your situation might qualify as harassment or otherwise over some sort of legal recourse. Recommend training an employment attorney who works with plaintiffs on harassment and discrimination cases of for half an hour or an hour and telling a concise version of your story to get a sense of what your options are. And next is talk to your manager or someone else if your boss is the bully. If your boss is the problem, think about whether you trust one of their peer manager or someone above them enough to seek their advice. The key here is to assess your specific situation and try to judge the relationships within your company. It probably would not be wise, for example, to go to the person who heard you bully or work with them at a previous job, and you definitely would not turn to their work or someone was relate to them. In the case of family company, because if you do and it gets back to the bully, it could make things even worse. If you made some attempts to deal with the situation and have not gotten anywhere, speaking to your manager, like I said before, and you can say, here's what's going on. I've tried these three things. None of them work, and that's why I'm here in your office. They're much better composition than this person is bullying me. Can you help me? Yes. And talk to HR or someone in power. First, decide who to speak with. Is not a proponent of taking your complaint to HR and suggest finding a high-ranking individual you feel you can approach with a plan to save money, or more on that in a second. The decision of whether or not to go to HR comes down of what type of HR person you're dealing with. One type of HR person is really focused on compliance and the rules of and the other type of HR person is focused on culture and people. You might have trouble with the former, but if you think you have the latter, they don't need corporate policy to help you. And second, think about how you can make a business case rather than a personal plea no matter who you decide to approach. Recommends literally calculating the cost of the bully to the company in terms of turnover, absenteeism, lost productivity, and more. Go step by step instructions here. Your documentation can also help at this stage because you will be able to create specific example of time waste and research loss. And finally, think about what is it that you want. Okay, thank you so much for my friends and Surali. There is my presentation. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.